Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Sword Art Online review. This one's going to be for the Sword Art Online abec artworks, ABEC artworks, you know, the artist for the light novels, character designer, that sort of thing. And yeah, this was released in English about a month ago, I think. Maybe it's just a few weeks ago. I had a huge problems actually trying to get it. Finally have it now so I can show it off to you guys. But yeah, here is the cover. Really nice image here. They explain in the middle of the book when they go over this specific image that it's sort of a character poll, Asuna 1, and so on. So they kind of use some of the more popular characters. That's why Yuki's kind of here on the cover, Kirito, Sinon, and then on the back cover, you can see here we have some of the other characters. Kabao there for some reason. Yui, of course. Asuna again. We have Silica, that's Alice, and Yu-Gi-Oh from the Alicization arc. Some of you may not know about that yet because obviously it hasn't been done in the anime, but that's it. You can see up here the details of it. The retail price is $30 US, $39 Canadian. I actually got this for, I suppose shipped, it was probably about €25, so it wasn't like too expensive, and I think that's partly because it's not a hardcover art book, but it's still really nicely done. It's you can see there Yen Press, who published the light novels, also do this. But yeah, let's have a look through it. There's also a small unique story by Reiki Kawahara called Chromatic Colors, which features Asuna, Yuki, Sinon, and Kirito, plus a new character, but we'll get to that. There's nothing too kind of crazy to talk about here. I suppose the first thing is that this is actually kind of like a dust cover type thing, and you can see here that it has this kind of background of swords, which the artist does actually kind of explain took him longer to do than the actual image that he used this as a background for, and that's why it's been used so much since. And then on the back you can just see it has more of the same. But yeah, I kind of wish in a way that this cover was kind of just printed on the cover rather than it being kind of dust cover, dust jacket. But yeah, just lots of really nice images throughout this book. It's a really good art book. But yeah, you can see the way it's done is it's kind of in chronological order. It goes through the release of each of the arcs of the light novels, and then there are kind of in-betweens covering various kind of media stuff like the announcement of the anime, the DVD for the anime, and so on. And it covers basically art between the start of the series right up until the release of the first Alicization volume. So it doesn't cover like everything that's out, but a good amount of the main stuff that I think people are familiar with. So you can see he goes over like the cover. You get really nice images of the covers for the different volumes, character designs here, and then he kind of explains them as well. They explain where each of these images came from. Most of them do come from Dengeki Bunko, but he explains just the details of it as you go through, and it's one of those ones where like there's not exactly a ton where I'd be like, oh, you have to listen to what he said here, but if you've ever seen him talk about stuff before, he seems a little bit more open about things, where like when it is a more fan servicey image, he kind of explains like how he came to the conclusion of like how much fan service to put in and not, and the points at which that was difficult or not. But yeah, there's a lot of different images, kind of the way it's laid out. Some of them are given a bigger kind of page. Some of them you get like full double page spreads. But yeah, you could just see like there's a kind of more fan servicey image. There's the volume with Silica in it. And again, like obviously as the different characters get introduced, he kind of goes over the kind of basics for designing the characters. There's some Yui. And we'll just skip ahead a few more. And you know, it's a kind of standard art book in that like it's an art book for a light novel series that got an anime adaptation. So it covers most of the art that you'd expect of some of the pages that you get in the light novels, the covers, kind of concept art stuff, and you know the little involvement he had in the anime. There is some nice comments about here once we get into the fairy dance arc of like him explaining that he really liked designing Sugaha, but that he acknowledges in nearly every image when he talks about her that he felt like the anime staff, the artists there, got her design so much better than he did, and stuff like the background here for ALO, that the anime kind of artist just completely outdid him. And so it was interesting to see him kind of note that just in his mind, a lot of the anime stuff, they just kind of completely eclipsed him in terms of the art. But that's obviously just him being pretty humble, but because obviously his art was obviously well respected enough, and I like his art enough, of course, to get the art book. The fact that he got an art book, and such a big and in-depth art book as well, is really impressive. You know, so here we're at the kind of ALO stuff, continuing on that, and like I think it's about just under 160 pages overall, this book. Print quality is really, really nice. I suppose the only problem at times is when there is a really big double page spread, the way they do the kind of how the pages are joined is a little weird, in that they have, I think it's that they have the right page kind of overlap a bit more onto the left page, so that I'll kind of try and show it to you here. This probably isn't the best one because there's not much detail in the middle of the image, but you can see that when there is a bigger image like this, they do show it across 2 pages. Is it here? Yeah, here you can sort of see it there, where the gap in the page is where Kirito's hand is. And you can see that on the left page, basically his whole hand is there. But on the right page, they print it so that you can see some of his hand as well. And I get that that's sort of to have the effect of, like, you can never fully, you'd kind of ruin the spine of the book to fully flatten it out to see every little bit of the image. But it kind of does make it look weird unless the page is kind of like held together like at a perfect angle, so that like it just kind of blends together. So that was a kind of interesting choice. Maybe it is just how in general they tend to do the double page spreads, but I just noticed it a few times when they position images and there's important stuff on the fold that it doesn't work as well. Like this is probably I suppose the worst example. Look at Yui there. Like there's 2 Yuis basically there, the amount of overlap that there is. This is definitely I suppose biggest example of it, the worst example of, like, there's Kirito and there's a gap between him and the edge of the left page, but they still include like a quarter of his head basically on the other page. So, you know, it's a nice image overall. It just is let down by the fact that, like, how far would you have to fold this over to like get a good image of Yui with the way they did it there? I think they would have just been much better off to just have it normal, have the page just match up exactly, and just have people look at it that way. But anyway, we're getting into the Phantom Bullet arc, GGO, and the introduction of Sinon. And you can sort of get an idea from the comments as well about the characters that he really likes to draw and so on. The commentary is actually pretty interesting here. I don't want to focus too long on just reading every single bit of it out, but it was interesting enough that I really did just sat down for reading through the full book and everything he had to say. So that was cool. You know, there's a really nice image of Sinon. He does mention, I think, a few times how, like, he struggles with drawing guns. So that's an interesting one. There's the kind of very well used, I think, the Sword Art Online Weiss Schwarz card game. There's a card with a piece of artwork that is not exactly this one, but it's a very similar one of just that idea of, you know, this Sinon in the game is kind of the idealization that Shino wants to have and so on. There's more pages from the actual book, and then this is kind of getting into, like, the, you know, you see media mix here. That's when they get into the section for, like, other stuff, like other video games and so on. Like, here's the section where they cover the Excel World Sword Art Online crossover. There's the CD kind of that they did, drama CD. There's a kind of double page spread of another thing they did for the drama CD. There's the kind of swimsuit kind of image, of course. That's a figure that he helped to design, which was an interesting kind of thing to read about. And then here's the bit where they explain the cover, the front and back cover image here. So the way he explains it down here is this: when this book got announced, we set up an online poll to determine the top 5 characters to put on the cover. Asuna was the first by a mile, and 2nd through 6th were really close. So so I wanted to stretch it to 6. Okay, oh hell, let's go with 10. They just kept piling up. If you look at the front cover, you might wonder whose hand is on Kirito's shoulder. So they kind of do, in this book, kind of, it seems like the release is in such a way where they don't want to go overly crazy in terms of like super heavy details on who the Alicization characters actually are. It kind of feels like, obviously it came out about a year ago, I think, in Japan, but it still felt like they sort of knew that the Alicization anime was going to happen, and they didn't want to just like go all out in terms of explaining the details of like who Alice is and who Yu-Gi-Oh is. But anyway, we get into the Mother's Rosario arc, and there's some nice stuff here. We continue on. And there's a few exclusive images here, like it says, you can see it says up there, art book exclusive. And they are really nice kind of new images. They're full double page spreads because obviously they perfectly fit the dimensions of this book, so they're full double page spreads. And again, it doesn't really suffer too much from the problem because like the action is kind of over here, and then it's mainly just background on the other side. Early and Late, which I believe is volume 8. But yeah, and then we get into Alicization. Here's I think they say this one says here, never commercially published, and I think this is a really nice image of kind of a younger Kirito, Alice, and Yu-Gi-Oh. And there's the double page spread from inside the first Alicization one that they do. There's the kind of chibi Alice from the back of the volume 9, and then more of the images from the inside as well. More double page spreads. This is another art book exclusive, as they say here, of the 3 of them together. And then the last couple of pages before the short story are kind of model sheets for the animation. So he kind of obviously acted as a kind of like character designer. So it's him kind of presenting all the details that are important to get right. And it covers a lot of characters. Obviously you have the main cast, Klein, Egel, even the avatars before the big issues happen, of course. There's Sugaha from like the first couple of back when we only saw her like in a little bit in the first season. There's Kibao, Diavel, more of the other characters, and then some of the other characters aren't colored in, but you get the more, you know, there's Grimlock there, and the other like Furin Kazan members and so on. But yeah, and it's just that's what it is for the remainder basically of the book. They color Yu-Gi-Oh in, of course. And then at the end, of course, they have this moment where they say, that's all for the character design, sketches. Starting on the next page is a brand new story written by Reiki Kawahara himself. So I'm going to quickly change up the camera so it's kind of just pointed at me, rather than struggling to do a review of this short story while also focusing on the book. But you know, this is the way to lay it out. They have space, so they kind of do it in 2 columns. Chromatic Colors, it's kind of about a new artist character, so that's why it's called that. And we will talk about that in just a minute. Okay, so to talk about the story Chromatic Colors from the art book, it's a very short story, very, very short. It's only like, in the art book, covers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... basically 6 pages, and one of those is taken up with kind of showing you the character design for the new character that they introduce here, whose name is Ceba, C-E-B-A. You can see the character design there. And the really funny thing is that they cover it here that, like, okay, original avatar and sword skill submission contest. So it was a contest to basically determine this new character. And it says it's from May 2012, and it says submitted under the name Bun Bun, and I'm just kind of like, okay, obviously this person Bun Bun submitted this, and then they do a story about this character. And then on the very last page, where they show the full image, they reveal that it was him. So what they say is that Siba was a character that I created for an avatar contest that was arranged for the release of one of the Sword Art Online video games. I, a professional artist, submitted it without prior acknowledgement or permission or shame, and somehow it wound up getting used. So here she is in the art book. This obviously relates to the story that actually takes place, but it's this really nice double page spread of the 4 characters who are kind of involved in the story, plus Siba herself there. And the idea is that she's painted this image on the wall of Aincrad, New Aincrad in ALO. And the idea is that she is an SAO survivor based on what they say here, and she kind of wants to be a painter, an artist, and they kind of establish here in the game that there's no effective way to be a proper artist in the game, because the only kind of canvases are either really, really small, or it's just kind of drawing on other surfaces that are available. So her mission here is just to kind of try and find a bigger canvas, and that they kind of established that this character had been like developing her cooking skills to make a really big cake so that she could use the top of the cake as a surface to draw on. And then she decides that, oh, if I get that item, the clan banner, that's a really big surface, I can draw on that. So she actually goes on this quest to defeat this secret boss on the 5th floor of New Aincrad, just for the sole purpose of potentially getting this guild kind of banner item to just draw on. So it's kind of absurd notion, but our team, of course, also figures out that there's a secret boss on the 5th floor of New Aincrad, and they go in there and find her battling this boss on its own, because they do explain in the book that it's a 5th floor, and they've cleared, because Yuki's in it, of course, they've cleared up to like floor 26 or 29, I can't remember exactly, but that this secret boss requires a key from floor 20, and it has a limitation that it can only be fought in a group of, I think, less than 7. So they decide that the difficulty level is perfect. They also kind of want to get the guild banners as well. So Kirito, Asuna, Yuki, Sinon, and Siba decide to actually take on this boss themselves. So they revive her when she gets killed within the boss, and they go in to take it on. Now, they don't cover the fight all that much, just saying that the boss is the same kind of golem type monster who was the 5th floor boss from Aincrad, but it's kind of slightly different in terms of how it's balanced. They cover that just they defeated it with relative ease, no real problem. That Siba and her kind of beast that she has tamed here, you can see it there, put on a pretty good show in there. They basically say that they get good rewards, but they don't get the clan banners, which is when they decide that they're going to help Siba out, and they kind of recommend, okay, what's the biggest surface in Aincrad that they can draw on? And Kirito's thinking like, okay, there's this thing on floor 25, there's this thing on floor 29, and then they're like, wait, what about just the wall of Aincrad? Like, that's the biggest surface out there. And because we can fly in ALO, and because ALO is just a Aincrad, because Aincrad is just a feature of ALO now, you can actually like fly next to Aincrad and draw on the walls, and that's what they sort of revealed, that her dog thing can actually change form and it can be a flying animal. And she draws that image that we see on here. She draws this exact image on the side of Aincrad, with the idea that they also set up what kind of paint she uses, since paint isn't really a thing in the game. That at the start, Kirito arrives to find Asuna and Yuki basically messing around cooking, trying to make different types of jam with different fruits from the game. And they kind of made a mess of it, using some really odd kind of grenade pineapple fruits and stuff like that. And Kirito comes up with the idea that this jam would actually make a really good form of paint, and so they give her all this paint, they give her the surface, and she draws that image. And it's just a nice little story with the idea that it came from a character creation thing, which humorously was won by the official artist for the light novel. So it's just a kind of an overall bit of a crazy story, but very entertaining. But yeah, overall, Sword Art Online, abec artworks, I'd highly recommend it. If you like the art, if you like art books, this is a really good Sword Art Online art book. I think you'll get a lot out of it. I really liked it. I had to wait a long time to get it, but I was happy once I got it. So yeah, high recommendation for me. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.